So good morning dear students, I am starting all over again. Nice to meet all of you in this class. It's a physical class, okay. So today I will be kind of giving you some idea related to the comprehension that we are going to kind of have, the kind of pattern that you are going to have in connection with the comprehension. The comprehension will not be of the old type, but it is of a different kind, in the sense they will give you a passage and the questions will be asked in the objective type basis. It is not a descriptive type. You don't have to kind of write answers, but you just choose the correct answer. That is one part of the comprehension. The second part of the comprehension would be a kind of picture. The comprehension would be asked in the form of a picture. There might be some pictures and then the pictures will be communicating some message and your answers would have to be based on the picture. So the picture has to be studied carefully and there will be questions related to the picture and the answers again will be in the objective type, right? And then there would be some data. We call that as the data representation. So in the previous syllabus of the CBSE, you had some diagrams, pie charts would be there, bar graphs would be there, some other kinds of graphs would be there, and based on the picture that is given, the data that is given, you will have to answer the questions. But the comprehension part is going to be mainly of the objective type and it is not going to be of the descriptive type. But you have to read the passage carefully and some of the questions will not be directly connected to the passage. They will not be directly from the passage but in relation to the passage. So you read the passage, get the concept and answer the questions which are related to the passage. So no direct questions will be kind of asked as far as the comprehension part is concerned. The literature part, it is as kind of as you have it right now. So there isn't any kind of major change in that. Okay, so in the next class, I will kind of bring the question paper and then discuss the pattern, right? So you will have a better idea about that. But today, I want to get into another lesson that is Glimpses of India. What exactly is the meaning of the word glimpse? If you have the book, you just take the lesson, but you listen to more of me than look at the book, because I'll give you the idea and then after that you go home and then read the book. Glimpses, what exactly do you mean by the word glimpse? It is a look. The word glimpses or the word glimpse means look. So what does this word look have to do with the lesson? Glimpses of India. What are you going to look at India? Okay, that is a point. Now listen. India has been a country which was blessed with wealth. Yes, India was a very rich country. That is why the Mughals came. Muhammad Ghaznavi came 17 times. Muhammad Ghori fought a fight with Prithviraj Chauhan nearly 17 times. He forgave him 16 times, Prithviraj Chauhan. Now the 17th time he came and then it was all finished. So if you kind of dig into the historical facts of our country, you will come to understand India had been a place of contention. Place of contention. What do you mean by the place of contention? It attracted people for its wealth. Number one, India had a great wealth and therefore this wealth attracted. It was the wealth that attracted the Muslims. It was the wealth that attracted the British. But I would like to emphasize on one point. There were many European powers which invaded India. There were many European powers. The first of the European powers to invade India was the Portuguese. First the Portuguese came, then the Dutch came, then the British came, then the French came, and then finally it was the Danes or the citizens of Denmark. So, even before the arrival of the Portuguese, India maintained trade relationships with the Romans and the Greeks. They came down to south. If you go to Kerala, you will have a lot of evidences to see that there was a trade relationship which went on between the Greeks and the Indians and the Romans and the Indians, because we have lots of coins. When archaeologists excavated, they got many coins. And on the coin, you had the figure of the Roman emperor. So how did those Roman coins come to Kerala? It simply shows that the Romans were attracted for pepper. You know pepper, black pepper? It was considered as a very, very precious spice by the Arabs and the Romans. So they all came to India for spices. India was a land of spices for them. The southern part, not the northern part. The southern part of India was known for spices. You had pepper, you had coffee, you had tea, you had cloves, cinnamon, all these things. So these spices attracted these countries, these people, and therefore they came with ships. And they brought their own things and they took away the spices. They loaded the ships with spices and then they went back. Even for textiles, there was a craze among the European powers for the textiles that were produced, the clothes that Indians made at that time. So, a man called Vasco da Gama, his name was Vasco da Gama. You might have studied about this man in history. He was the first man to find a sea route to India. But even before him, there were Arabs and Greeks. They had their own routes, but probably it was a very long route. This man found out the easiest route, and I think it was in the year 1499. You can check out the year. And he landed up in a place called Calicut. This place is in Kerala. If you go to that particular place there, you will see there is a kind of mark, there is a plaque, okay, or a kind of memorial stone. So on that is the information written. On such and such a year, in such and such a place, a man called Vasco da Gama came and landed up in India. You understand? So you can understand the importance of India. They understood the importance of India. They came to know that India was a kind of land of spices and many other resources. So we need to have trade relations. As soon as this man came and landed up in India, he gave a big report to the king of Portugal. And the king came to know about the wealth that India possessed. And from then onwards, he sent his people. And the Portuguese came to India and they made Goa as their base. They made Goa as their base. So all the business transactions were carried out from that particular place known as Goa. And Goa still exists today. But one thing you have to keep in mind is, the Portuguese were the first to come to India and the last to leave. Because in the year 1962, the Portuguese left India. India fought with the Portuguese forces, soldiers, and then finally the Portuguese left India. They came first and they left last. In the year 1962, Goa became free from the Portuguese rule. And after that, after some years, Goa became a separate state. As soon as the Portuguese left, it became a union territory. Okay, and after some years, Goa became a state. You find out when Goa became a state. Okay, that is not directly related to the lesson. But what I would like to tell you is that the Portuguese made Goa their base. For example, the British came. The British landed up in Surat. Okay, they approached the Mughal Emperor Jahangir. They came to India during the period of Jahangir and they asked for a small piece of land to do business. And Jahangir said, okay, take. He gave a farman. Farman means a charter, a written official document granting some special powers. So he gave them the farman. And after that, what happened? The Britishers slowly expanded. They set up their kind of outposts in Surat, and from Surat they carried on business. One difference between the British and the Portuguese is that the British were purely business oriented. Their only aim was to conduct trade, have trade relationships. So they used cotton, they used tea, they used opium, okay, and they used indigo. These were the commodities that they traded in. So if you speak about the indigo, okay, protest, Chauri Chaura, that is related to history. You can find out all those facts. But Portuguese not only came to have trade relations with India, but they also influenced the culture of Indians. They affected their culture, Indian culture, that is point number one. They affected their religion, they had their influence on the religion of Indians, and finally politics. These were the three areas, okay, the Portuguese had their influence. So how did they affect? How did they affect the culture? How did they affect the religion? How did they affect the politics? These points need to be discussed. So the Portuguese came to India and saw the Hindus. Okay, at that time there were no Christians when they arrived. All right, in Goa. Of course, in Kerala there were many Christians because St. Thomas, the disciple of Jesus, he came directly to Kerala. I don't know which way or which route he picked up, but he was there. But in Portuguese, I mean in Goa, there weren't any Christians. Only Hindus were there. So the Portuguese came and set up laws. And they said, all of you must become Christians. So they tried to convert the Hindus into Christian religion. Religion was affected. They made several laws and they granted many privileges to those who became Christians. If you read the history of Aurangzeb, Aurangzeb gave 2 rupees for any Hindu man who would become a Muslim and 1 rupee for any Hindu woman who became a Muslim. So Farman is there, Aurangzeb's signature is there, it is there, the archives, it is kept in a museum in Pune. Okay, so you can learn about all these things. But the Portuguese, their intention was to carry on business plus convert the people. So all the Hindus, right, most of the Hindus in Goa became Christians and they were given preferences in jobs, they enjoyed lots of privileges. And again, those who did not become Christians, they were punished, they were tortured, and sometimes they were burned to death. That method was, of course, it's not acceptable, it is not right. It is definitely a kind of atrocity, I would say. But this is how the Portuguese affected the religion. So if you go to Goa today, I'm just kind of, giving you the extra information. I'm not coming into the lesson. I will soon come. Don't worry. If you go to Goa, you will find lots and lots of churches. Goa is a tourist destination. The moment you speak of Goa, people think of beaches. Beautiful beaches, restaurants, okay, serving food and this and that, okay, and carnival in the month of December. If you go to Goa, you'll find carnivals, okay, people celebrate. But when you go to Goa, you will see a small Portugal there. What did you see? A small Portugal. Why? The buildings, the churches which are built there, they are of the Portuguese style, Portuguese architecture. The houses, if you go and see the houses that people live in Goa, not the modern houses, the colonial period houses, they were all kind of built based on the Portuguese architecture. So the kind of windows, doors, the rooms, the furniture, everything is of the Portuguese style. So you find the architecture, Portuguese architecture there. And then you find the names, all the Christian names having Portuguese titles, like Mascarenas, de Souza, de Gama, Gonçalves, and 100 other titles. All these titles are Portuguese titles. So they gave their names. And the Portuguese who came for trade, they married with the Indians. And a new race began, just as the English did, the Anglo-Indian community. The British officers, army officers, they took Indian girls to be their wives, and the children who were born were known as Anglo-Indians. They are neither British nor Indians, but it's a mixed race. In the same manner, if you go to Portuguese, you will find many people, many families of the Portuguese origin. So the Portuguese, they came, they took marital alliances, they formed marital alliances, and after that, the generation that came out was a Portuguese generation, mixed generation. So the names, right. Culture, how did they affect the culture? All the kind of ceremonies. See, Hindus, they have their own ceremonies. They have their own pujas. They use their own mantras. Housewarming ceremony, the birth of a child, the death of a person, a marriage, okay? And you wear this thread, for the boys, Upanyanam, we call that. So we have our own kind of ceremonies and our own culture. But if you go to Goa, you will see most of the ceremonies have a Portuguese culture at the background. So the Portuguese marriages in Goa, most of the marriages are celebrated in the Portuguese style. How could you say that? The very dress that the boy and the girl, Dullah and Dulhan as you say, that's of the Portuguese style. And the food that is served during the ceremonies, the table is decorated with all kinds of Portuguese dishes, even today. Okay, the meat dishes, the vegetarian dishes, the kinds of breads that are served, they are all of the Portuguese cuisine. Understand? So, the culture was affected by the cuisine, by the dress, okay, by the customs. Clear? So, the Portuguese affected the very life and the very culture of the Indians. That is the difference. But the British, they were not like that. Unlike the Portuguese, the British never kind of took anything seriously. Oh, you are following this culture, that's your culture. Go ahead, no problem. I want money and I want business. So for them, money counted. But for the Portuguese, not only money, but I will impose my own culture in your life. I will change you. So they changed everything. Okay. So culture, okay, dress, customs, everything is based on Portuguese culture. If you go to Goa, you will find that. Even during the month of December, if you go to Goa, you will find carnivals. You have floats. On 26th January, when we celebrate the Republic Day, you have different exhibits by different states. Yes, in the morning if you see, the President, Chief of the Armed Forces, he takes a salute, okay? And then there are different floats, okay, moving on the road. And every float represents a state, a particular state. So this is a kind of procession, okay, you can call it. But if you go to Goa in the month of December, you will have lots of floats like that, singing, dancing, okay? They are all based on the Portuguese culture. That is known as a carnival. What is it known as? Carnival. So carnival means celebration. It is found in many Latin American countries like Brazil, Argentina. They have carnivals. So you have a carnival in Goa. And Goa is the only state in India where you will find the carnivals during the Christmas time. So the celebrations, they affected the lives of the Indians. The dress, they affected the lives of Indians. The food that they ate, that affected the lives of the Indians. The houses that they lived, that affected the lives of Indians, because behind all these things, there was a touch of Portuguese culture. Okay. Now, in the lesson that we have, okay, for our syllabus is related to a baker from Goa. That is the lesson. Now we are coming into the lesson. A baker from Goa. The writer focuses on the life of a baker. Who is a baker? We have bakers all around. You go to Godda, you will find bakeries. And who makes the pastries? Baker. Who makes the bread? The baker. Yes or no? So, when you go to Goa, the baker is called by the name Pader. A baker is known by the name Pader. And who is a Pader? A Pader is nothing but one who makes bread. This is exactly a Portuguese name, Pader, one who bakes. Now, why does the writer speak only about a baker in Goa? There are many things to speak about Goa, but he doesn't speak all of those things. He speaks only one thing, that is baker. Why is baker important? Baker is important because he makes the daily bread. The writer reminisces. This is very important. What do you mean by reminiscing? Reminisce means thinking about the past, thinking about your childhood. When you think about what you did in class 1, now what you do is you reminisce. When I think about how I sat like a student, like all of you, I reminisce. Okay? So the writer reminisces. He thinks about when he was a boy and there were bakers all around. Bakers were considered very, very important. You know why? Because they provided the daily bread for the people. So one who makes the bread and serves you is a very important person, because if he doesn't provide bread, what will he do? Food is the most important thing, and it is for food that we are all here. Our very life is based on food. Okay, so this man provided the food. So during the Portuguese time, bakers were found to be everywhere. Paders were found to be everywhere. Every street, every locality, even the villages, in every nook and cranny, you found bakers. And bakers were known by the name Padre. Padre means father. Padre means baker. So, why is he given importance? Because Padre starts the day. What does he do? Starts the day. How does he start the day? He brings bread in the morning. So he comes to every house, okay, and he wishes the people in the house by saying good morning. That is point number 1. Then the baker had his identity. What was his identity? A basket of bread. So he had a basket of bread on his hand, on his head. And on one hand, he was having a bamboo stick. On one hand, he had a bamboo stick. So what does this bamboo stick do for him? It had small bells attached. The bamboo stick had small bells attached. And the moment the baker started to kind of come out of his house, he started beating that bamboo pole. There was a sound created, thud. You call that as thud. So the baker held a bamboo stick which had small bells attached to it, and when he kind of beat that bamboo pole, there was a sound created, and with the sound, the tinkling of bells, okay, was produced. So, by listening to the jingle or the tinkling of the bells, people understood, okay, now the baker has arrived. He was the first one to make an entry in the house. So, he was considered very important. 6 a.m., he came to the house saying good morning, and the moment he entered, the servant of the house became servant of the house, became active. How did the servant become active? She went to see what kinds of breads the baker brought. So there were different kinds of breads. For example, for the young children, there were bangle-shaped bread. Bangle, you know? So he had bangle-shaped breads for the young children and of course a different kind of bread for the grown-ups. So the writer was a small boy and he remembers what happened. The moment the baker came, all the small children in the house, they used to rush to see what was in the basket. It's natural. We are all, when we were kids, we were curious. Yes or no? We were all curious. So when daddy brings something to your house when you were small, when he brought something to your house, when he brought something to you, you wanted to kind of see what was that. If he brought a parcel, you wanted to open the parcel. If somebody gave a gift to you on birthday, you wanted to see what kind of birthday gift that is. So you wanted to see that curiosity in the same manner. When the baker made an entry into the house, the children rushed and they kind of surrounded the basket. And the elders would push them out. Go! So the servant was given the bread. She received the bread. And the bangle kind of bread, bangle type bread, okay, were also given, and the children, after brushing up their teeth, they had a cup of tea with this bangle shaped bread, and the elders, they had their own bread. So that first meal of the day was nothing but the bread given by the baker. Therefore the baker became very important. Okay, he made an access, he became part of the family. The baker became a part of the family because he provided bread for the family, the daily bread for the family. Okay, so the baker was paid every month. The baker was paid every month. How was he paid? The servant made a note or she kept an account on the wall. See, in south, sometimes, the milkman comes. The milkman comes to give milk. So the person, okay, the mother, sometimes, what does she do? She makes a note on the wall. On such and such a date, so much of milk was given. Or if you have a calendar, it is noted on the calendar. In olden days, they used to make the accounts on the walls. So at the end of the month, you calculate and then pay. It was the same. The servant of the house made a mark on the wall. She made a mark on the wall. So the account was made at the end of the month, and then finally the baker was paid. The baker's money was never kept away because he was a very important person. Whether you buy dress or other necessaries for you, that doesn't matter. But the baker has to be paid because he is associated with your stomach and your daily bread. So he occupied a very important kind of place. So every month the baker was paid. And the writer says the bakers were living a very prosperous life. They were living a very prosperous life. So what kind of prosperous life was he living? He never ran short of money. He was always supplied with money. His money or his bills were never left unsettled. The bills were settled properly and regularly by the end of the month. Point number one. Point number two. The baker provided all kinds of breads for all occasions in the family. When there was Christmas, the baker was sought after. The people ordered different kinds of breads, like bolinos. Okay, you will find the names of breads there. It's a very easy passage. So all kinds of special breads and sandwich breads, okay, different kinds of bread, pita, they were all ordered by the people for occasions, like marriages. In marriages, sandwiches were a must. Even if you go and attend a Portuguese wedding, wedding in Goa, in a Goan family, you will see all these breads, kinds of breads and meat dishes, all prepared on the Portuguese style. So, the baker provided all kinds of breads for all occasions of the family. Social gathering, festival, whatever. So, he became a very important person, right? So, he was prosperous. he had a kind of long cloak or a long dress, one-piece dress. He had a long one-piece dress. If you go to the Middle East, you will see the Muslims wearing a big kind of what you call cloak. Okay, so it does not kind of have any openings. Just put it. It's a single piece of cloth. It's known as kufia. Okay, it's known as kufia, a single piece of cloth. And in some countries, Middle East, African countries, they call it as the labia. They all mean the same. Name is different, but the garment is the same. So the Portuguese baker, he wore a special kind of dress, a single piece. And by looking at that dress, you can understand, oh, the baker is coming. And he had a fair, round belly. A round belly. So anyone who has a fair, round belly seems to be rich. Yes or no? For example, it's the Brahmins, those who kind of offer pujas in our Indian culture. A Brahmin normally has a big, what do you call, belly, because he goes to conduct pujas in different houses. A child is born, Brahmin is invited. Somebody dies, Brahmin is invited. Some marriage, Brahmin is invited. That of Panyan ceremony, Brahmin is invited. So he's given a lot of food, sweets, and besides that, he's given money as well. So automatically the stomach becomes bigger. So when you see the fair round belly of a Goan baker, you can understand he does not run short of food. Food is not a problem for a baker because money comes to him and he feeds his family, okay, and he fulfilled all the needs of the family. So the baker became a very, very important person, right? Now, the beginning of the lesson tells you the Portuguese, they left. But the bakers, some of the bakers are still there. Though you have modern bakeries today with all kinds of machines to make cakes and breads and pastries, the old bakers' generation still continues. There are some people, okay, who make the bread in the old Portuguese style. The generation continues. Some. Most of them they left, most of them they died. So with the departure of the Portuguese, slowly the number of bakers began to decline. But the writer says, there are bakers existing, even in some part of Goa. And how do we know that? The equipment that they used, the molds. You know what is a mold? You make the dough and put it in the mold, and after that you push it into the oven. After some time when you take out the mold, bread is ready. Molds. They can still be seen, the old style molds. The furnace, that is the oven, okay, in which the bread is baked. Ovens are still there, okay. And some other kind of vessels which were used by the old Portuguese bakers, they are still there. So the writer begins the lesson by saying that though the bakers left, the original bakers left, their generation still continues. Understood? So this passage is nothing but a description of a baker of Goa who baked breads during the Portuguese times. And the kind of social privilege or social